etat shrutva vachanam keshavasya kritanjalir vepamanah kiriti namaskritva bhuya eva krishnam sagadgadam bhita bhita pranamya. This is very powerful language of Vyasa. And having thus heard, Sanjaya Vacha, Sanjaya speaks to, as you know, the Dhritarashtra, blind king. And having heard thus speech of Keshava, of Krishna, Kritanjali is this, in this position, Vepamanah, trembling, Kiriti with crown, Namaskritva, having bowed to him, Bhuya eva, even more, again and again, let us say. Aha, Krishnam, he spoke again. Sagadgadam bhita bhita pranamya. Having bowed to him, pranamya. Bhita bhita, interesting word. It is translated in the dictionary as afraid, tremendously afraid. It's double bihita, yeah? Afraid, in one compositor. Means maybe afraid of his own fear. Being afraid, and because of that, kind of another wave of fear comes, yeah? From one's own fear. I think it is something of the kind, because both are participle perfect passive voice. Afraid, or scared. Sagadgadam. Sagadgadam is the word used as indeclinable, which means gadgada is the when the heart is beating. Yeah, Sagadgadam, with beating heart very fast. Totally afraid, he bowed down to him. So, in a faltering voice, that's how Sri Aurobindo translates Sagadgadam. When everything is, breaking in the voice, because you are so emotionally disturbed. Bihita, literally, we spoke about fear before, it is shrunk, yeah? Shrinking back to oneself. So to say, the expansion of the being is not allowed. You are becoming very small. You are shrinking back to yourself, searching for your own ground somewhere within yourself. You cannot be secured somewhere. You can't feel security around yourself, even within yourself. Even there you shrink. Arjuna Uvacha. And now I will go through the whole text, just one by one, and then we will stop and discuss what is here in this chapter. Arjuna Uvacha sthane hrishikesha tava prakirtya jagat praharishyatya nurajate cha rakshansi bhitani disho dravanti sarve namasyanti cha siddha sanghah. Sthane Hrishikesha Tava Prakirtya, such a beautiful diction. Sthane means in place or rightly. It's in the right place. Or Hrishikesha Tava Prakirtya, with your Prakirti, with your glory. Jagat Praharishyati, the world is rejoicing. Anurajyatecha, and rejoicing. Anurajyate is kind of taking pleasure in thy name, as Sri Aurobindo translates, and rejoices the world. Rakshansi bhitani, all the Rakshasas are scared. Dishodravanti, run in all the directions. Sarve namasyanti, all are bowing down. Siddha Sanghah, all the Siddha Sanghas, all the Sanghas of the realized beings, or the Siddhas. We do not know, this is the whole class of the beings in that subtle world, which is called Siddhas. literally realized ones. Kasmatchate nanameran mahatman gariya se brahmano piyadi kartre ananta devesha jagannivasa tvam aksharam sadasat tat paramiyat tvam adi devav purushav puranah tvam asya vishvasya param nidhanam vettasi vedyam cha param cha dhama tvaya tatam vishvam anantarupa Vayuryamo gnirvarunah shashankah Prajapatirtvam Prapitamahascha namo namastestu Sahasrakritvah Punascha bhuyopi namo namaste Namah purastada atha prishtataste Namastestu sarvata eva sarva Namo stute sarvata eva sarva ananta virya amita vikramah tvam sarvam samapnoshi tato si sarvah. Okay, I will take this. Kasmachate nanameran Mahatman Gariya se Brahmanopyadi Kartre. And how else? How should they not bow to you, O Mahatman, O great soul? Gariya se, to you who is greater than even Brahma, the creator, or the first creator. Yeah? To you, the first creator, and the greater from Brahman, the creator. Ananta Devesha, or infinite, the all God or Lord of gods, Jagannivasa, or the location of the world. As he mentioned this in the Gita before, that it is the world is in him, not he is in the world. Tvam Aksharam, you are indestructible. Sat, the Sat, Asat, and existent being and non-being. Tat, and that, Paramyat, which is the supreme. Tvam Adi Devach, you are the first God. Purushach, Purana, you are the first God, you are Purusha, and Purana, the ancient one. Tvam asya vishvasya param nidhanam. You are of this universe the supreme dwelling place. Both. Vetasi de vedyam. You are the knower and you are to be known. Param cha dhamma, and the supreme location. Tvaya Tatam Vishvam, by you all this universe is spread, Anantarupa, or infinite in form. Vayuryamo, Gnir Varuna Shashanka, you are one by one names. Vayu, you are Yama, you are Agni, Varuna, Shashanka, Prajapati, you are the Prajapati and Prapitamahasya. Prapitamahasya is usually the grandfather, usually the Brahman, the creator. Namo namastestu. There must be, or there should be, salutation to you again and again. Sahasra kritvach, 1,000 times. Punascha bhuyopi, and again, namo namaste, salutation to you. So it's 1,000 times salutations, and on the top of those 1,000 times, more salutations should be. Namah purastat, there should be salutation behind. Purastat in front, prishtataste, and behind. Namostu te sarvata eva sarva. From all the sides there should be salutation to you, because you are all. Ananta virya, or infinite in power, amita vikramah, with the infinite or immeasurable strength, tvam sarvam samapnoshi, you realize or gain all, tatosi sarvach, and thus you are all. This sarva can be translated also as every, not only all, but every. You get everything and therefore you are everything. Also interesting. Everything and all, yeah, the kind of very close to our integral yoga psychology. Sakheti matva prasabham yat uktam, he Krishna, he Yadava, he Sakheti, ajanata mahimanam tavedam maya pramadat pranayena vapi yachava ahasartham asatkrito si vihara shaya asana bhojaneshu vihara shaya asana bhojaneshu in one santi ekotha vapyachyuta tat samaksham tat kshamaye tvam aham aprameyam. This is an interesting psychological thing here. Sakha. Sakha is the friend, literally the one who shares the same space with you. Sakha iti matva, having thought thus that you are the friend, prasabham yaduktam, when it is spoken in prasabha, in the gathering, in the group of people. He Krishna, He Yadava, O Yadava, He Sakha iti, O friend, ajanata, by me not knowing, mahimanam tava idam, this greatness of yours, maya, by me, pramadat, because of bewilderness or because of stupidity or some kind of negligence. Pranayena vapi, or out of love. Interesting. Out of love or negligence? Both. So, by not knowing your greatness and talking to you directly, or friend, or Yadava, or Krishna, yacha avahasartham asatkritosi. And if you were disrespected by me out of, or for the sake of jokingly disrespected, interesting, making fun of you, yes? When I made fun of you and you felt disrespected, vihara shaya, either in the place of rest or in the bed, shaya, lying down, sleeping, asana, sitting, bhojaneshu, or in the time of bhojana, eating, ekotha vapi achyuta tat samaksham, tat kshamaye tvam aham aprameyam. Then I ask your forgiveness for this, for my negligence. Because you are aprameyam, you are immeasurable. Not knowing this thy greatness, in negligent error or in love, and for whatsoever disrespect was shown by me to thee, in a jest at play on the couch, or and the seat, and in the banquet alone, or in thy presence, O faultless one, O immeasurable one, I pray forgiveness from thee. Oh, this is the immeasurable. So now, finally, he realizes who is his friend. Pitasi lokasya, you are the father of the world. Characharasya, of the moving and not moving, unmoving things. Tvamasya pujyascha guruh gariyan, you are the most respected or to be respected guru of all gurus. Natvat Samo, there is no equal to you. Asti. Abhyadikach kutonyach. Even greater than you, there is no greater anyone. So who else is there? Lokatraye apya pratima prabhava, apratima prabhava. Because your prabhava, your might, is immeasurable, incomparable in might. Pratima, it's to measure against, yeah, to compare. Those of you who know Sanskrit, it's quite interesting to see how words are managed, yeah, to give this meaning. Tasmat pranamya, and therefore having bowed, pranidhaya kayam, prostrating my body in front of you, prasadaye, Shubhendra translates, I demand grace of thee. It's an interesting word, to demand grace, yeah. I beg you to forgive. Aham isham tvam. I beg you, the Lord, the beloved, to forgive. Literally, it's causative. I cause or I implore you to be merciful. Yeah. Pita Eva, as father Putrasya of the son, Sakha Eva, as friend, Sakyuh to the friend, Priyach, Priyaya, as beloved to the beloved, Arhasi, you should, O God, bear with me, Sordhum. These are words full of love. Adrishtapurvam Hrishitosmi Drishtva Bhayena cha Pravyathitam Manome Tad eva me darshaya deva rupam Prasida devesha jagannivasa. Adrishtva purvam, not seen before, Prahrishtach asmi. I am, sorry, Hrishitosmi. I'm already making my own words from the same root, Prahrishta. Hrishitosmi, I am delighted. Drishtva, having seen, unseen, till now unseen the form, I am rejoicing. Bhayena cha vyathitam manome, but my mind is still trembling in fear. Tadeva me darshaya deva rupam prasida devesha jagannivasa. So show me your form, O God, your merciful form. Yeah, be merciful to me, the Lord of gods, the abode of this universe. And then we have a close. We will finish the whole reading and then we will go into discussions if you want. Unless something is very urgent and you want to interrupt, you are welcome. Kiritinam gadinam chakrahastam. This is what he asks, what form he wants to see. In the crown, kiritinam, gadinam with gada, which is the mace, chakrahastam, with the chakra, with the vajra in one's hand. Ichami tvam drashtum aham tathaiva. I want to see this form of yours. Tenaiva rupena chaturbhujena, with your four hands, rupa. Sahasrabaho bhava vishvamurti. Become, O Sahasrabaho, with 1,000 hands, become four-handed one. Don't be 1,000-handed one. Reduce the number of hands, literally. Four are enough for me to see. I don't want to see all thousands of them. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, and the blissful Lord said, Maya prasannena tavarjuna idam rupam param darshitam atma yogat tejomayam vishvam anantam adyam yanme tvad anyena nadrishta purvam. So by me, by my prasada, prasanna, by me being gracious, by me gracious, this form was revealed to you by the force of Atma Yoga, of the Self Yoga. Tejomayam Vishvam Anantamadhyam, full of light and universal and infinite and original, Yanme Tvadanyena, that form which was shown by me to you by other person except you, Nadrishta Purvam, was never seen before. This form to see in the physical body is very problematic, it seems. Yeah? It is possible somewhere when you leave the body, but to stay in the physical and to see this universal form, it requires a lot of grace and power, it seems. That's what happened to Arjuna. Naveda yajna dhyaya naich nadanaihi nacha kriyabhich natapobhich ugraich evam rupach shakyach aham nriloke. That's what he was saying, exactly what I was saying. Drashtum tvadanyena guru pravira. Not by the Veda, not by the sacrifices, not by the studies, not by the givings, by the gifts or actions and tapasyas severe, such form is possible to see in the world of man, other than you, or Kuru Pravira, or the hero of Kuru clan. Mate vyatha macha vimurdha bhavach drishtva rupam ghoram idrik mamedam vyapeta bhich pritamanach punastvam tadeva me rupam idam prapashya. Mate vyatha, there should be no trembling. Macha vimurdha bhavach, there should be no bewilderment. Literally, I'm translating. Drishtva rupam, having seen this form, ghoram, terrible. Idring, this type, mama idam, this my form, horrible. Having seen terrible form, there should be no vimurdha bhava, state of vimurdha, state of bewilderment, of vyatha, trembling, fear. Vyapeta bhich, void of fear, pritamanach, with a pleasant mind, punastvam, again you. Tad eva me rupamidam prapashya, see this my form, says Krishna. So he kind of shows him his form of beloved. Yeah? So removing all the fear, all the terrible vision, and making him again peaceful and normal. Cast away fear and let thy heart rejoice. Behold again this outer form of mine. Sanjaya Uvacha Ityarjunam Vasudevah Tathoktva should be. Svakam Rupam Darshayam Asa Bhuyah Ashvasayam Asa Chabhitam Enam Bhutva Punach Saumya Vapuch Mahatma. So Sanjaya said that iti Arjunam Vasudevah Tathoktva, and having said thus to Arjuna Vasudeva Krishna, Svakam Rupam, his own form, Darshayam Asa, showed Bhuyach again, Ashvasayam Asa, having passive or kind of consoling him or bestowing grace upon him, Bhitam Enam, on him who is afraid. Bhutva Punach Saumya Vapuch, having become again in this pleasant form, Mahatma, great soul. Arjuna Uvacha, Drishtva idam, Drishtvedam Manusham Rupam. I see your human form. Tavasaumyam Janardana, your pleasant human form is coming back to me. Finally, my friend is back. Idanim asmi samvrittach sachetach pravrittim gatach. So, and I restore, my heart is filled with slight, and I am restored to my own nature. Slight. Sam vrittach sachetach. Sachetach together with consciousness. I become conscious, let us say. Prakritim gatach, coming back to my prakriti, to my senses, let us say. Coming back to my senses. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Sudur darsham idam rupam drishtavan asi yan mama Deva apyasya rupasya nityam darshana kangshinach. That form which is so difficult, sudur darsham. Durdarsham difficult to see, sudurdarsham supremely difficult to see. Rupam, drishtavanasi, see, you saw. Yan mama, which is mine. Deva api asyarupasya nityam darshana kangshinach. Even the gods are constantly desiring to see this form. And the gods are not in the physical body. No? They are in the heavenly bodies, and even they are desiring to see that heavenly form. Naham Vedaich tapasa nadanena na cha ijyaya. Again, repetition of the same what we saw before. Shakyach evam vidhag drashtum drishtavanasi si mam yatha. And that form which you saw cannot be seen neither with the help of the Vedas, nor with the tapas, nor with the generosity or sacrifices. Bhaktya tu, only with bhakti, ananyaya shakyach aham evam vidhach Arjuna. I am possible to be seen literally. One can see me only with bhakti and not by any other means. To see me, to know me, and to enter into me. This we will maybe stop and try to interpret why he says to realize me, to see me, and to enter into me. Only with the help of bhakti and not by other means one can do this. And then finally, the final verse of this chapter, mat karma krit, mat paramach, mat bhaktach, sangha varjitach, nivayarach sarvabhuteshu, yachsa mam eti pandava. Mat karma krit, do all the actions only for me, mat paramach. Seek only me, mad bhaktach, love me, sangha varjitach, leaving all the attachments behind, nivairach, without any sense of enemy, having nobody here for enemy, sarva bhuteshu, in all the beings, yachsa, the one who is of this kind, Samam Eti, he comes to me, O Pandava. So this is the end of the chapter. I used 30 minutes. It's not bad. 20 shlokas, 30 minutes. I know it's a bit overwhelming, but still. Yeah, now it's discussion. Any thoughts? Maybe I was very fast, yes, and maybe it would be better to read Sri translation and not my literal translation, because for me it's easier to go through the text. Interestingly, how Sri Aurobindo translates, accept me as the supreme being and object, mat paramah. Very difficult to translate this word, mat paramah. Me as the supreme object, as the only thing. The only object of this yoga is the divine, as Sri Aurobindo says. You remember? On the basis of yoga. If you have any other object, any other desire, any other thing to do, then the success in this yoga becomes impossible. This is Mat Parama. Make me as the only object.
So, Ladime, like in Savitri, we have the adoration of the Divine Mother with Ashwapati when he sees the Divine Mother. Similarly, the prayer that Arjuna gives reminds me of that, the great adoration of Sri Krishna with his, when he sees that form.
Yeah, yes, that's so beautiful there. When he discovers the Divine Mother and he saw the outline of her face, you remember that? And he fell at her feet unconscious, prone. He was in such an ecstasy that he lost his consciousness. Nobody saw the outline of her face ever. You know, in the occultism, it's also known as Isis, the Divine Mother, has a veil over her face. And that veil was never taken away from her face. Nobody ever saw her face. Never, ever. It is considered that the mother's face nobody saw ever. And he saw, Ashwapati, the outline of her face. And that was, it put him down. Yeah, totally. He lost his consciousness from only outline, from that beauty of the mother. Yes, something of similar experience of ecstasy, of seeing the divine.
It seems that this overwhelming experience seems to relate to the different aspects of the divine, like the transcendent, universal, and individual. So I was wondering, would you say that this is Krishna in his universal form, or is it Krishna with the veil removed as the individual form, when he, even before he comes back to Narayana, that form? I'm a little bit baffled by this, but I accept that we're not really able to bear the grandeur of the full divine experience, the full realization or the full presentation of the divine experience.
I think so. We are not capable. We don't have the strength. It requires such a power of consciousness, and also physical being will be totally smashed and crushed and destroyed. Our physicality is not able to handle the force, and our psychology is not handle. You look what happened to Arjuna. Arjuna is the best among men, was chosen by Krishna, was prepared for this, was led to this, and even then he got totally destroyed by this vision. So I think so. Yes, there is a constant phrase in the Vedas: the one who could see the divine in all and all in the divine, and will not be bewildered, shattered by this, destroyed by this, he will know the divine. Yes, because there is a chance to be totally demolished by this vision.
Yeah.
It has to be a grace from the divine towards Arjuna to protect him from that demolition, I think.
Yes, I
And
think so.
it was Vishvarupa Darshana, that means universal form. Yeah? He saw the totality of the divine presence in all. And not only saw, but also felt and been it. Yeah? It's not only that he saw it objectively, or that's the last phrase I wanted to discuss. Jnatum, drashtum, I praveshtum. 3 words: to realize, to feel, to be, to see objectively as it is, and also to enter. It's interesting, huh? 3 different words.
That verse,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah.
Sure. Oh, sorry. That verse really struck me to realize, to see and enter into, and only by love and bhakti. And Sri Aurobindo goes on to say love, adoration, devotion, the crowning of the yogas of works and knowledge. So I've read a number of commentaries by Gyanis who say, oh, no, that's just, flowery words. Devotion just means concentration. You're devoted, you're concentrated to, right? And I think 2 things strike me. Vladimir and I have been having conversations about the place of the self and Jnana Yoga in the yoga, so this has been on my mind a lot. One thing is, if you read those verses, if you comprehensively hear those verses as the music, it's just so obvious. You don't have to think. It's so obvious this is not just talking about jnana, self-realization, or the immutable spirit. The second thing is that I don't see any conflict. Clearly, for Arjuna to have this, Arjuna's been through the past 10 chapters. He's already mastered silent meditation. He's already living in the silence, but not in an ascetic silence, because he's involved in works. And for 4 chapters, he's been seeing the powers and the presence of the divine everywhere. So he's clearly not coming to this vision. I mean, this is so obvious, he couldn't possibly come to this from a purely ascetic, reject Prakriti and know the Purusha place. So I think this chapter is such a beautiful preparation for the Bhakti Yoga.
Of course, yes, I agree with you. Yeah, and Sri Aurobindo says that Bhakti itself is not possible without jnana being already in place. Yeah, so the first step is karma yoga, the effort, the will. The second is jnana yoga, self-realization, reaching heaven, so to say, realizing the unborn self. And the third would be the bhakti. Finally, you know whom to love. Yeah? How can you love someone with this intensity without knowing? It's impossible. Truly. You can love you can love some exaggeration of your vitality or your emotions. Yeah, you can enjoy the excitement of your emotions, but that is not bhakti really. It is a self-indulgence of some kind. By the way, Mother speaks about this, even with regard to Ramakrishna, which is quite amazing. I'm sure you remember that passage. Somebody asked her why Ramakrishna is dancing in this ecstatic dance, shouting and this and that. And she says it's something in his vital enjoys this, this performance. So there is some kind of self-indulgence. Otherwise, you don't need to do it. It's a vitality. Vital is hit by this intensity of the spirit. And once it wants to, how to say, to also participate somehow, to join the party. I had similar things in my experience. I remember I even was writing these poetry about this, that the intensity of the presence was so that the vital cannot but weep with joyous of tears, and at the same time, so there is no way out, because you don't have other yourself than this vital and mental. Yeah, you don't have yet another spiritual self to be free from this weeping or from this kind of self-indulgence. You do not know how to be yet, to be free from these elements of yours, because you were only that. So when it hits you first, especially, then you become very vulnerable. Later, we train ourselves to be more and more transparent and purified. This is to the topic of purification of Dawn, how it is important to purify the vital to handle the spiritual force. Otherwise, it will start dancing and shouting.
I remember the first time I went into a black church in Brooklyn, New York. The preacher, who was a very large man, went into ecstasy, and he gets up on the pew, which is about this big, and he's dancing, jumping up and down and dancing, and he's not completely keeping his balance. And he's in ecstasy, and he's saying, thank you, Jesus, amen. You know, he's going on. And he had some real energy, but it was all this wild, vital, you know, uncontrolled energy too. So there wasn't as much purification yet.
Right, and there is also self-indulgence in that sense, especially in many churches, not to speak about all, and don't want to judge any religious practice, but especially in the United States, I've seen this kind of indulgence in excitement. The more excitement you have, the more truthful it must be, you know. But it is exactly the opposite. So the self-excitement of the vital actually tells me immediately that it is all fake. Well, partially fake, let us say this way. Otherwise, people are very precise with words nowadays. One should be careful not to say too much. Yeah. And all those exaggerations also, like beating oneself, torturing oneself, all this is from the same storage of the vital, claiming to be spiritual. And there is some truth in it, because vital is excited by spiritual presence. It's true. Psychic presence is making it really weep, or spiritual from above.
That's why it's very important to purify the lower nature.
Yes, absolutely. Because it will hijack all your movements and all the grace which comes to you to transform you and make you receptive of it will be hijacked by this vital force and then used by it for its own self-aggrandizing and self-assertion in the world and many other things. All the distortions are coming from this. People who had experiences started to use this force for something. We know this. We've been there. We've seen all these things.
So would you say that great saints, you know, Ramakrishna, I don't know, maybe Ramanuja and Chaitanya, they go through these ecstatic elevations, but they don't get attached to them. They can immediately go into samadhi and be perfectly still, whereas someone who only has that vital excitation can't settle down. He stays in a sort of agitated state.
Yeah, I used the example of Ramakrishna only to say that even in his case, look, who is already, we know the divine is in him and he has real true experience even in him. That's why I used it, not to say that he is the example of this kind of exaggeration.
Yeah, but it's good to mention examples like him so that we know that the excitation alone is not a sign of no true realization. I think, I mean, would it be correct to say that you can have, in a moment of divine ecstasy, you can have outer excitation, celebration, very, what's the term going, opposite of introvert, what, you know, extroverted expression of joy in the divine, but at the same time, you maintain that inner stability, and that actual absolute separation.
Very nicely said. Yeah, if you have this exaltation and then that exaltation kind of exalts you, so to say, you like it, yeah, you enjoy it tremendously. From you get inspiration from your own exaltation. Then that is the loop of the vital layers.
Jan and I had spent the last 2 years with a relatively young man in his early 30s who I believe, we both believe, he was in jail. He was facing a life sentence and somehow got converted. He had spontaneously woken to the unborn self, and he seemed, from everything he said and everything I've learned in decades, that he had a vision of the supreme divinity, the Purushottama, the supreme spirit. And somewhere along the way, we saw this happen, this descent happen. Somewhere along the way, he was convinced he had become one with Krishna and Radha, and right, and he began. You could tell he was getting lost in some very, very dark, inner, subtle, vital worlds, and suddenly, like it was like his vision and the energy you could feel in the room, the energy around him began to get darker and thicker, and we finally had to separate from him. But it was a really challenging case because we kept saying, looking every time, he seems to be saying some of the clearest, wisest things I'd ever heard or ever come across, and yet someone who had that level of realization, couldn't see. It was obvious that he was beginning to be lost by the remnants, very strong remnants of vital and mental ego. So yeah, it's interesting to see it firsthand.
And this is also interesting what you said, that he was saying very wise things and experiential things. In the vital, actually, you can have all of them, and they're mixed. Truth is mixed with untruth. And because of that, it's very difficult to separate them. So to say, you hear the truth because you want to hear it, you recognize it, and then you think that he must be in that state of consciousness, but his state is mixed. Yeah. I've also distinguished this difference with dissent. The dissent can be very peaceful, and true dissent is not demanding anything. Yeah? You don't have any excitement in the vital. Opposite, the vital is frozen. The vital is totally kept, like under some kind of frozen is a good word. Yeah, it doesn't know what to do. It's like, oops, still. It becomes still, stillness, absolute, incommunicable, descends. And with this, some light bliss enters, but of a different kind, not vital. And peace, very deep, profound, all-pervading, everywhere present. As Sri Aurobindo says, even thousand, maybe not Sherman, from Buddhist, even thousand of lightnings, if they break over your head, you would not move. This type of peace, you know. And if that is the vital power, then you are totally different. You are excited. You are uplifted in a very specific way. You could feel that you can do anything in the world. You feel that you are in charge of yourself. You are master of yourself. This is the indication which I actually could recognize. Yeah? And that is very pleasant feeling, to be master of yourself, to be capable of doing many things, but differently pleasant. And then you have to choose what you want to be, either this or that. So here there is a choice. So my soul made a choice. It doesn't want to be this master of oneself, you know. I remember that choice. It was so good to get out of that possibility, even, yeah, to move in that direction. It was long, long ago when I was young, 25 years old. But from that time on, I can recognize the difference immediately. And it could be feeling one can feel spiritually with this excitement. It can come even from some semi-spiritual source. There are many sources which try to possess us, many energies. We have no idea about this universe in which we live. Anyhow, it's amazing that we are coming together in the name of the Gita, Krishna, Sri Aurobindo. So lovely. It's very nice to have our community. And Zoom helps, you know.
I was going to say, I don't know if everyone here is studying Sanskrit. I found there's a free book. I can put it in the chat. There's a book online you can download for free that has the Sanskrit in, you know, our regular script. So I was able to follow it exactly as Vibram was true. So I'll write it down in the chat if you want to copy it.
Is it Winthrop Sargent?
What's that?
Is it Winthrop Sargent?
No, it's Swami Tripuri. Anyway, I'll write it down.
Tripuram. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to read without totally understanding, but I would suggest you spend some time studying Sanskrit grammar to understand how he builds the thought, because there the meaning is hiding.
Is there a good book to recommend for grammar?
Well, no. It's all tough. If you are ready for tough studies, yes, then yeah, I can recommend 45 lessons and you will have all grammatical knowledge. But you need help. It's not easy to go through. I teach according to this book for the last few decades. And there are students who went through and now they are reading the texts, so they are teaching Sanskrit and so on. But it has to be completed. The beauty of grammar is in one particular sense. When you complete it, you know what is possible within Sanskrit language. You know what is possible, what is impossible, what is correct, what is incorrect, and why. Once you know that, it's a totally new level. You could feel the choice which Vyasa is choosing, the words and why and roots, and you could feel the subtlety of his, and especially Vedic language in the Vedas. Hymns to the Mystic Fire we have. You can also come to our Hymns to the Mystic Fire. There you will enjoy tremendously language. That is the language we have to look into. Gita is more already rational language. It's about our mental structure of consciousness. Yeah, it already explains things, as it were, except this chapter, Vishvarupa Darshana. But the Veda, it is not explaining anything. It's just acting constantly. Okay, great. So we can stop here for today. It's exactly our time. Thank you, everyone, for this Vishvarupa Darshana together. And I will close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Actually, we can study rather Savitri, and through Savitri, the faculties of consciousness, how our consciousness functions, going deeper, recovering all those nitty-gritties, recognizing them in ourselves. It's another way of doing this profound work. Because to learn another language is a bit much. Yeah? It requires at least...
Can you do Savitri with us?
We did this already, started to touch upon it. It was a little messy, but because I was not really in the right kind of frame of thought. It needs peace, it needs trust somewhere, and I couldn't get it somehow, and I was in a hurry, and I don't like what I did, actually. I was very disappointed at the end. It can be done much better. It is much more there than we could really touch upon. I was very in a hurry in a way, and it needs dwelling. It needs time, each passage. And when you dive deeper and deeper, more things come and more explanation why this faculty is used in that particular line or something. That requires time and peace and trust to guidance somehow, that it will open up to us. It's not my knowledge. It has to come to us as inspiration of some kind. We have to see, otherwise it is closing, and then you will see only words or whatever you know already. It's very different. The same with Gita, the same with all scriptures anyway. Great. Okay, thank you everyone, and see you then next time. Namaste.